In the crystalline observation dome of Deep Space Station Epsilon, Ambassador Naira's bioluminescent patterns flickered with anticipation. Like all luminari, her translucent form pulsed with colors that reflected her emotional state, currently a cascade of excited blues and curious greens. The approaching human vessel would mark the first official contact between their species, and Naira's role as first ambassador carried the weight of generations. The luminari had watched humanity from afar for decades, puzzled by their contradictions. A species that created both poetry and weapons, that laughed in the face of danger yet wept at the sight of beauty. They were everything the luminari were not: solid, opaque, unpredictable, and fascinatingly complex. Honored Ambassador, Senior Guide Fellows approached, his own patterns showing concerned purple swirls. The human ship requests docking permission. Their emotional signatures are intense. Naira's light patterns shifted to a calming azure. As expected, Fellows, humans feel everything deeply, though they hide it behind their solid forms. We must remember not to overwhelm them with our empathic projections. The human vessel, the UES Horizon, docked with precision that impressed even the perfectionist luminari. Their ships, like their bodies, were sleek crystalline constructs that grew rather than were built. The human vessel, by contrast, was all angles and purposeful engineering, beautiful in its own way. Captain James Harrison strode onto the station, flanked by his diplomatic team. His surface emotions hit Naira like a wave: determination, curiosity, hint of anxiety masked by confidence. Behind him, Dr. Raven Blackwood, Earth's leading xenoanthropologist, projected such intense scientific curiosity that several junior luminari had to dim their receptive fields. Ambassador Naira, Harrison's voice carried warmth that matched his emotional projection. On behalf of Earth United, welcome to humanity's first step toward what we hope will be a lasting friendship. Naira's form brightened in greeting, carefully moderating her empathic output. Captain Harrison, Dr. Blackwood, we welcome you with open hearts and minds. The traditional luminari greeting caused several human crew members to gasp as Naira's light patterns created a stunning aurora effect throughout the chamber. What followed was a first contact unlike any in recorded history. The luminari's natural empathic abilities meant they couldn't help but feel the humans' every emotional nuance, while the humans found themselves fascinated by the way luminari communication involved both words and light patterns. During the diplomatic dinner, Dr. Blackwood couldn't contain her enthusiasm. Ambassador, your species' ability to literally wear your emotions as light, it's extraordinary. But I'm curious, how do you handle conflict resolution when everyone knows exactly what everyone else is feeling? Naira's patterns shifted to contemplative silver. We don't handle conflict so much as prevent it, Doctor. When every being can feel the pain they cause others, violence becomes nearly impossible. Captain Harrison leaned forward. But surely there are times when knowing others' feelings isn't enough? When action is required? Action? Naira's patterns showed genuine confusion. What action could be more powerful than understanding? The humans exchanged glances that the luminari felt rather than saw, a complex mix of admiration and concern. Lieutenant Commander Patel, the ship's security chief, cleared her throat. Ambassador, what happens if you encounter a species that doesn't share your empathic abilities? One that might see your peaceful nature as exploitable? The question sent ripples of disturbance through the luminari delegation's light patterns. The concept was so foreign to them that several members began to glow with stress patterns. Naira maintained her diplomatic composure, but her inner lights betrayed her unease. We believe, she said carefully, that all sentient beings can be reached through understanding and emotional connection. Harrison's next words would unknowingly set in motion a chain of events that would transform both species forever. Ambassador, with your permission, I'd like to propose an exchange program. Your diplomats learning our ways, our people learning yours. Not to change either species, but to expand our understanding. Naira's pattern shifted to a new color, one her kind had never seen before. It would later be named Horizon Blue, in honor of the human ship that first inspired it. Yes, she said, feeling the rightness of it in her core. We have much to learn from each other. As the humans and luminari continued their discussions, neither species realized they were witnessing the beginning of a transformation. The Luminari would learn that sometimes understanding wasn't enough, that there were times when action was necessary, and humans would discover that their emotional depths, once illuminated by Luminari insight, held powers they never imagined. The stars watched silently through the crystal dome as two vastly different species took their first steps toward a future neither could have predicted. A future where light and shadow, peace and strength, would merge to create something entirely new. 6 months after first contact, Earth's Interspecies Academy in Geneva hummed with an ethereal glow. Luminari delegates cast shifting patterns across the centuries-old architecture, their light mixing with morning sunshine through stained glass windows. But it was in the combat training hall where the most fascinating developments were unfolding. Lieutenant Commander Patel stood before 3 Luminari students, their forms pulsing with what she'd learned to recognize as eager anticipation. Today, she announced, we're going to learn about defensive stances. She caught herself before adding combat training. They discovered early on that the Luminari processed such concepts better when framed as physical harmony exercises. Vin, the youngest Luminari delegate, brightened with interest. Unlike their older peers, the younger Luminari had shown surprising adaptability to human concepts. Like the energy flow postures we use in emotional regulation? Exactly, Patel replied, demonstrating a basic blocking position. Think of it as directing energy, just more physically. What happened next astonished everyone in the room. As Vin attempted to mirror the stance, their crystalline form not only moved with perfect precision but began emanating patterns that somehow enhanced their movement. The light seemed to flow with their motion, creating after-images that tracked their energy flow. Extraordinary, Dr. Blackwood muttered into her research terminal. They're instinctively integrating their natural light properties with physical movement. It's like watching living aurora become martial arts masters. Meanwhile, in the Luminari meditation chamber, humans were experiencing their own breakthrough. Captain Harrison sat cross-legged, his mind linked to a Luminari empathy field generated by Ambassador Naira. The chamber's crystal walls amplified their shared emotional awareness, creating a space where human intensity met Luminari understanding. Your species feels so much, Captain, Naira observed, her patterns shifting thoughtfully. You carry oceans within you, yet you move through life containing these tremendous forces. We're beginning to understand why you built such solid ships, such strong structures. You needed vessels worthy of your internal storms. Harrison opened his eyes, still adjusting to the way these sessions left him both drained and energized. And we're beginning to understand why your kind never needed them. You don't contain your emotions, you transform them into light. The exchange program was producing unexpected results across all areas. Human engineers working with Luminari crystal shapers discovered that human emotional intensity, when properly channeled, could influence Luminari crystal growth in ways their gentler touch never could. Luminari empaths helping in human medical facilities found that their ability to read and project emotions made them extraordinary trauma counselors. But it was in the defense courses that the most remarkable changes emerged. The Luminari's natural grace, combined with their ability to read their opponent's emotional state, made them unexpectedly formidable in practice sessions. They never attacked, the very concept remained foreign to them, but their defensive capabilities were evolving in ways that startled even their human instructors. They're not learning to fight, Commander Patel explained to the Oversight Committee. They're learning to redirect energy in ways that happen to be incredibly effective at neutralizing aggressive force. It's like watching water become a shield. The Luminari themselves remained charmingly unaware of how their abilities were being transformed. To them, each new physical technique was simply another way to maintain harmony. Each defensive move just another form of energy management. They incorporated human teachings into their worldview with an innocence that made their growing capabilities all the more remarkable. One afternoon, during a joint meditation session, young Vin experienced what would later be recognized as a pivotal moment. As they practiced their new harmony maintenance postures, what humans would call advanced defensive kata, their light patterns suddenly synchronized with their movements in a way that created solid force fields of pure energy. I don't understand, Vin pulsed with confused patterns. I was only trying to express the emotion of protectiveness we learned from the humans. Dr. Blackwood's excitement was palpable. You've done something unprecedented, Vin. You've transformed an emotional concept into physical force. Do you realize what this means? But before anyone could fully process this development, the Academy's emergency systems flared to life. A priority message from Deep Space Command appeared on all screens. An unknown alien vessel had just violated Earth's outer defense perimeter, its intentions clearly hostile. Captain Harrison's expression darkened as he read the report. The moment they'd hoped to avoid had arrived. Humanity's new allies were about to face their first real conflict. How would beings of pure light and empathy handle the harsh realities of spatial defense? Ambassador Naira's pattern shifted to a new color, the same horizon blue from first contact, but now threaded with something else. Something that looked almost like determination. "Captain," she said, her voice carrying an unfamiliar resonance. "Perhaps it's time to show you what understanding and action can achieve together." The humans exchanged glances. In 6 months, they taught the Luminari about defense, about protecting harmony through strength. Now they would discover exactly what these beings of light had done with those lessons, and whether two fundamentally different approaches to existence could create something powerful enough to face whatever was coming from the stars. The hostile vessel emerged from hyperspace like a dark wound in the fabric of space-time. Its crystalline surface, unlike the luminous structures of the Luminari, absorbed light rather than emitted it, a characteristic that sent shivers of distress through the Luminari crew members aboard the joint defense vessel UES Harmony. Void Hunters, Ambassador Naira's patterns pulsed with recognition. "We encountered them once, centuries ago. They feed on light itself, on energy, on life. We retreated then. It was our only loss." Captain Harrison stood on the bridge, watching tactical displays as 2 more enemy ships materialized. "Not this time, Ambassador. This time you're not alone." The Void Hunters' first attack came without warning, a beam of anti-light that carved through space toward the human colony on Alpha Centauri B. But what happened next would be recorded in both species' histories as the moment everything changed. Ven and 5 other Luminari positioned themselves at the Harmony's newly installed resonance chambers. Crystal alcoves that merged human technology with Luminari biology. Their forms began to pulse with unprecedented intensity, synchronizing with the ship's defense systems. "Energy shield harmonics at 200%, Lieutenant Commander Patel reported, wonder in her voice. "They're not just blocking the attack, they're transforming it." The anti-light beams struck their shield and shattered into prismatic rays that the Luminari actually absorbed and redirected. Decades of pure defensive philosophy, combined with 6 months of human tactical training, had created something entirely new. Warriors of light who could turn an enemy's darkness against them. "Now, Captain," Naira's voice carried an authority that seemed to resonate through the ship itself. "Show them what happens when understanding meets action." Harrison's orders rang clear. "All batteries, targeted spectrum release." Just like we practiced. The Harmony's human gunners, their minds linked to Luminarian paths through the resonance chambers, fired. But these weren't ordinary weapons. They were focusing crystals that channeled the combined emotional energy of both species. Beams of pure, coherent light lanced out, carrying within them the fierce protectiveness of humanity and the luminous harmony of the Luminari. The effect on the Void Hunters was devastating. Their light-absorbing hulls, designed to consume gentle energies, couldn't handle the intense emotional resonance embedded in these attacks. The first ship's surface began to crack, leaking captured light from within. But the Void Hunters hadn't survived eons by being easily defeated. Their counterattack came in waves of darkness that threatened to engulf the Harmony. In the resonance chambers, Ven and their fellow Luminari felt their first real experience of combat stress and made another breakthrough. Instead of retreating from the fear, they transformed it into a new form of light. Their patterns shifted to colors humans had never seen before, creating defensive fields that didn't just block the darkness but purified it. "Remarkable." Dr. Blackwood's voice crackled over the comm from her research station. "They're not just defending, they're healing space itself. The Void Hunters' weapons literally cannot exist in the wake of this energy." The battle reached its climax when the lead Void Hunter vessel, attempted to breach the colony's atmosphere. What they encountered instead was a wall of light formed by hundreds of synchronized human and luminary minds. The Harmony's crew watched in awe as their combined power turned the darkness back upon itself. "They're retreating," Patel announced, her tactical display showing the enemy ships pulling back. "No, they're running. They're actually running." In the aftermath, as the Harmony's crew conducted damage assessments, something profound became clear. The Luminari hadn't just learned to defend differently, they had evolved. Their forms now held new patterns, their light carrying echoes of human determination. And the humans, through their neural links with the Luminari, had gained a deeper understanding of emotional energy. Ambassador Naira approached Captain Harrison on the observation deck, her patterns showing the new horizon blue threaded with gold. "We thought understanding was enough," she said softly. "You showed us that sometimes understanding must be defended. And in teaching us to defend, you helped us understand even more." Harrison nodded, still processing the implications of what they'd achieved. "And you showed us that strength doesn't have to mean violence, that light can overcome darkness without becoming darkness itself." In the resonance chambers, Vin and their human counterparts were already discussing modifications to their defensive systems, their minds linked in ways that would have been impossible months ago. None of them fully realized it yet, but this battle had done more than repel an enemy. It had forged the foundation of an entirely new form of civilization. As the Harmony set course back to Earth, its wake sparkled with remnants of transformed energy, a literal representation of how two species had turned darkness into light, fear into strength, and separation into unity. The Void Hunters had sought to consume light, but had instead witnessed the birth of something that would change the galaxy forever. The perfect fusion of human passion and luminary luminescence. 1 year after the Battle of Centauri, the luminary homeworld of Luminos pulsed with unprecedented patterns of light. Where once their crystal cities emitted only soothing, harmonious glows, now they sparkled with dynamic energies, a visual testament to how deeply humanity had influenced their civilization. In the newly established Joint Defense Academy, built within a massive crystal spire that merged human architecture with luminary crystal-growing techniques, Vin had become something unprecedented, the first luminary combat arts instructor, though they still refused to call it combat. "Energy harmonization is not about defeating an opponent," Vin explained to a mixed class of human and luminary students, their form shifting through training patterns that looked remarkably like martial arts katas. "It's about transforming disruptive force into constructive energy." The humans in the class had undergone their own transformation. Each wore a crystal resonator, a device that allowed them to perceive emotional energies the way Luminari did naturally. The effect was striking. Human movements now carried traces of luminescent energy, their intense emotions channeled into visible light. At the Academy's Research Center, Dr. Blackwood and a team of luminary scientists made another breakthrough. "Look at these readings," she exclaimed to Captain Harrison, who had been promoted to fleet commander after Centauri. "The regular exposure to human emotional intensity is actually causing luminary crystal structures to evolve. They're becoming more resilient, more adaptable." Harrison watched a demonstration where a young luminari transformed from their natural translucent state into something nearly solid. "And our people? What effects are we seeing?" "Extraordinary ones," Naira answered, entering the laboratory. Her patterns now maintained that unique horizon blue permanently, marked with streaks of what they'd come to call warrior gold. "Your species is developing natural empathic abilities. Not as strong as ours, but growing stronger each generation." The changes weren't just physical. Luminari society, once almost rigidly peaceful, now embraced a more dynamic form of harmony. They understood that sometimes peace had to be actively maintained, that light sometimes needed to shine more fiercely to dispel darkness. Humans, in turn, were learning to process their intense emotions in new ways. The rate of violent crime on Earth had dropped dramatically as more people adopted luminary meditation techniques enhanced by the resonator technology. War, while not eliminated, had become increasingly rare as empathic awareness spread. Lieutenant Commander Patel, now head of the Combined Defense Forces, stood in the Academy's Strategic Command Center, watching real-time displays of joint human luminary patrols. The ships themselves had evolved, Human vessels now incorporated living crystal technology, while Luminari ships had adopted more robust structures inspired by human designs. "We're receiving reports of more Void Hunter activity in the Outer Rim," she reported to the Joint Council. "But something's different this time. They're not attacking, they're running from something." Ambassador Naira's patterns shifted to show concern. "The deep space sensors we developed with human technology are picking up massive energy disturbances. Something is coming, something that feeds on both light and darkness." Harrison studied the sensor readings, his resonator crystal pulsing in response to the growing tension in the room. "Whatever it is, it's larger than anything we've encountered. Early calculations suggest it's approaching from intergalactic space." "Then we face our greatest test," Naira said, her patterns resolute, "not just of our defenses, but of everything we've become together." In the training halls below, Ven led their students through increasingly complex energy manipulation exercises. Human muscles and luminary light moved in perfect synchronization, creating patterns of force that would have seemed impossible a year ago. They were no longer two species working together. They were becoming something new. "Commander," a young human cadet approached Harrison, her resonator crystal glowing with the same patterns as her luminary training partner. "We've been analyzing the incoming threat's energy signature. It's like nothing in our combined records." Harrison nodded grimly. "Gather the joint fleet. Whatever's coming, it'll face something unprecedented too. A force that combines human determination with luminary light. A power that can turn darkness into dawn." As ships began assembling in orbit around Luminos, their crews both solid and luminescent, the galaxy watched and waited. The Luminari had been transformed from the most peaceful species in known space into something far more complex. Beings who could fight without losing their light, who could defend without sacrificing harmony. And humanity, once seen as too emotionally volatile by many species, had evolved into something greater. Warriors who could feel the consequences of their actions, protectors who could channel passion into pure light. As the unknown threat approached, casting shadows between the stars themselves, both species prepared to face it together. They had learned that true strength comes not from hardness or softness alone, but from the ability to be both and neither as needed. The coming battle would not just be for survival, but for the validation of everything they had become together. A test of whether light and shadow, peace and power, could truly merge into something strong enough to face the darkness between galaxies. The entity that emerged from intergalactic space defied conventional description. It was a void larger than worlds, a darkness that devoured light itself, making the Void Hunters seem like mere shadows in comparison. The combined fleet of human and luminary vessels hung in formation, facing what appeared to be the heat death of the universe given conscious form. "Energy readings are off the scale," Lieutenant Commander Patel reported from the flagship Harmonic Dawn, a vessel that represented the peak of both species' technologies. "It's not just absorbing light, it's consuming the very fabric of space-time." Fleet Commander Harrison stood on the bridge, his resonator crystal pulsing in sync with the Luminari crew members. Around him, humans and Luminari worked in perfect harmony, their differences long since transformed into strengths. "Ambassador Naira, what do your people's ancient records say about this?" Naira's patterns swirled with colors that reflected both concern and determination. "There are legends, passed down through our crystal archives, of a time before our species evolved into light. They speak of the great darkness between, a force that periodically sweeps through galaxies, consuming all in its path. The entity's first attack came not as a weapon, but as an absence, a wave of null energy that began erasing everything it touched from existence. But this time, facing both humanity's fierce determination and luminary luminescence, it encountered something new. Ven, now first defender of the combined forces, initiated the defense protocol they developed. Throughout the fleet, humans and luminari joined minds through their advanced resonator crystals. The luminari's natural light merged with humanity's emotional intensity, creating a new form of energy that existed somewhere between thought and light, between matter and spirit. "Now," Harrison commanded, and the combined fleet moved as one. The battle that followed would be spoken of for generations to come. The void entity struck with weapons of unlight, attempting to erase whole sections of space. But where its darkness touched, it found not separate forces but a unified field of conscious light. Human determination gave the luminaries light and intensity it had never known before, while luminary wisdom gave human strength a precision it had always lacked. In the harmonic dawn's central chamber, Vin led a synchronized defense unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Hundreds of minds, both human and luminary, linked together through crystals that had evolved alongside their alliance. They didn't just create shields, they rewove the fabric of space itself, turning the void's entropy into new forms of energy. It's not just a creature. Dr. Blackwood's voice came over the comm, her scientific wonder evident even in crisis. It's the physical manifestation of entropy, of the universe's tendency toward darkness. And we're reversing it. The entity seemed to recoil, experiencing something it had never encountered in billions of years of existence. Resistance that didn't just fight against darkness, but transformed it. The combined fleet moved in complex patterns, their ships trailing light that existed in spectrums never before seen in this galaxy. But the void entity was ancient and powerful. It lashed out with a force that threatened to tear reality apart. In that moment, something remarkable happened. Something that proved just how far both species had evolved. The humans, their minds linked through the crystal network, voluntarily surrendered their individual consciousness to join with the luminary in a unified field of pure awareness. At the same time, the luminary, drawing on everything they'd learned about human passion, channeled an intensity of emotion they had never dared express before. The result was beyond transformation. It was transcendence. The combined fleet began to glow with a light that was somehow solid, while their physical forms took on the ethereal qualities of pure energy. They had become something entirely new, beings that were both matter and light, both individual and unified, both peaceful and powerful. The void entity, faced with this unprecedented force, began to change as well. The combined consciousness of humans and luminary reached out not to destroy it, but to transform it, to show it that entropy wasn't the only fundamental force in the universe. That light and life, when combined with understanding and will, could create rather than consume. When it was over, the entity had not been destroyed but transformed. Where once there was a void that devoured light, now there was a sphere of new energy, a bridge between light and dark, between being and non-being. The combined fleet surrounded it, their own transformed nature helping to stabilize this new form of existence. In the aftermath, as the fleet returned to normal space, both species knew they could never return to what they had been before. The luminary had evolved beyond pure light to embrace the solidity and passion of humanity, while humans had transcended their physical limitations to touch the luminescent consciousness of their allies. On the bridge of the harmonic dawn, Harrison turned to Naira, their resonator crystals now permanently synchronized. I don't think either of us could have predicted this when we first met. Naira's patterns showed colors that had no names in any language. Perhaps not. But now I understand why our species were destined to meet. Apart, we were incomplete. Together, we've become something the universe has never seen before, and exactly what it needed. As news of their victory spread throughout the galaxy, other species watched in wonder as humanity and the luminary continued to evolve together. They had become living proof that the greatest strength comes not from remaining unchanged, but from having the courage to become something new. The transformed void entity now orbits a distant star, a permanent reminder that even the darkest forces in the universe can be changed by the combined power of human determination and luminary light. And in academies throughout both species territories, new generations learn not just how to fight or how to shine, but how to be both and neither, as the universe requires. For in the end, the greatest change wasn't just that the luminary learned to fight, or that humans learned to shine. It was that both species learned that true evolution means becoming something that neither could have imagined alone, together.